Welcome back to the F100 build, and you left me off at a critical point last week where everything had been connected back up, the air ride, etc., and I was at the point when I was ready to drive it out, and then sadly I burnt an airline on the exhaust, so I'm now waiting for that airline to be returned. So whilst I'm waiting for that, I'm going to tick off a couple more jobs and get it ready. Again, we're getting pretty close. So one of the things that I've got now is that the air ride sensors I now have, so these are actually, I believe, are BMW parts, and what I need to do is mount them onto the vehicle. So there were some before, they were all broken, the arms are broken, and what we're going to be doing is mounting these replacement ones, and they mount just under here near the airbag. So I'm going to fit those up and connect up the wiring for those. So then when we've got everything up and running, then what we'll be able to do is to configure the ride height and set the preferences of where we want the lowest setting to be, where we want the ride height setting to be, and potentially where we want the highest setting to be as well. So I'm going to get to fitting these. It's a bit of a fiddly job, but I'm going to do these now, and yeah, that'll be a job well done, and again, good preparation for when we're ready to get this thing moving. So I'll crack on. Okay, so that's the ride height sensor now hooked up, and you can see what previously was done was that the sensor was connected to this small linkage here, but in my mind the geometry of this won't work, because if this moves up, that's going to end up being too long, which is probably what ended up with it being broken. So I think what I'm going to do instead is mount it in such a way that it's sort of almost horizontal or parallel to the swing arm, and mount a new linkage with an additional arm from here. I might tap a hole, screw it in maybe, something like that, or put another bracket on, attach it to that so that when the arm moves up, it pushes the arm up and down in this sort of more, I guess, horizontal movement, because that, I think, is the cause of the breakage, is that it's just not, the geometry of it doesn't work. Now, again, I'm no air ride expert, but logically, it needs to have another sort of movement as far as I'm concerned, so that it can, yeah, basically not just break, which is what I think has happened there. So yeah, I think I need to order a little linkage here that can then move that up and down freely without any stress being put on the arm, because I don't think that would work. So I'll get something on order and we'll get that fitted up. Right, so the airline's back in, it's back at a sensible ride height, and I'm now going to see if I can drive this thing back out of this tent for the first time. It'll be moving under its own steam in goodness knows how long. So fingers crossed, let's see if it actually moves. We've not used the transmission before, so we'll find out a lot about this vehicle right now. fail. No transmission, and then as you saw, popped an airline or something. Maybe I hadn't seated that one properly, so a bit more investigation and we'll go again in a bit. Ugh. It's endless. So after the first failed attempt at moving the vehicle, I fixed the airline, I'd just not seated it right and it popped off. And there's an issue with the transmission. So I'm not panicking quite yet, because this is a TH350 and I've had a few vehicles of TH350s in my life. And they have a habit, if they're being left sat for a while, that the seals sort of dry up a bit and they dump their transmission fluid all over the floor. I've had that happen with numerous vehicles. And as soon as the transmission fluid is low, then they won't shift into gear at all. So if you experience this, if you experience TH350, oh, actually a Powerglide, I've had it happen with one of those as well. Don't panic straight away, because it might mean that it's low on transmission fluid. So I've done is check on the dipstick the level of the transmission fluid, and it dropped right down. So what I need to do is to get some more automatic transmission fluid and fill that up. And the filling procedure, because initially it seemed like it had plenty in it, and then when I've tried to run it, then it's dropped right down. So what you have to do is kind of fill it up and then cycle through the gears to move the fluid around the box and through the torque converter and stuff like that. And unless it's got enough in it, then it won't be going anywhere. So I'm not panicking right now. What I'll do is I'll get some transmission fluid, fill it up, cycle through the gears, and then see if we can get some movement. So as I say, if it's something that you've experienced, don't panic, it does happen. If I fill it up and it's still not working, then it's time to panic. So yeah, I'll get some automatic transmission fluid. Right, transmission filled up, take two. Let's see if we can drive this thing out. She moved. Brakes seem to be binding on a bit, so I need to look at that, but she moved. Transmission works, that's great news. Linkage needs adjusting slightly, but yeah, that's great. And it's finally out in the daylight for the first time in goodness knows how long. Get in. All right, so we're out here in the daylight for the first time in what feels like weeks. It is 3 degrees, so you don't want to be out here too long. But now she's out here, the intention is to get her cleaned. I've got this heavy duty engine degreaser, which I've used before. It's really good stuff. So I'm going to degrease under the engine bay and clean the rest of it out the back here as well. So this you spray on, leave it sit for a while and then spray it off. Going to cover over some of the electronic components and the carburetor, so I don't need to clean that. And yeah, like I say, get this all clean and let it dry and then get it back in. So it's only a short-lived time being out here, as you'd expect in this weather. But yeah, I've been waiting to do this for weeks, so an exciting time. I'm gonna go and get it clean.
Yeah.
Might put a little noddy's hack on the carburettor. And yeah, I'm just going to give it a good liberal dousing with degreaser. I'm sure you guys can remember how mucky it looked under here before. So it'll be nice to do a little before and after.
Well, soon, Lordy, one morning, death come creeping in the room. Soon, one morning, death come creeping in the room. Death come creeping in the room, and I know that my time ain't long. Oh death, down that lonesome road. Death, oh death, yeah, down that lonesome road.
Okay, there she is cleaned. That manifold has come up so much better than it was. I don't know if you can see that. Once it's dried off, I'm sure we'll be able to see a better look, but luckily it's still warm, so it's steaming off. That might speed up the drying process. We've lost a lot of paint on the engine block, but that was partly by design really, because we've got a plan for that. But yeah, I think it's gonna come up nicely. Like I say, just look at the difference it's made to that manifold, which is almost black with a grease and crud. So yeah, a job that I've been desperate to do for a long time. So happy to finally got it done. Back in the relative warm of my marquee, I've blown it off with an airline, dried it off, and the heat from the engine has also dried it off. And like I say, I think you can see the manifold and everything has come up very nicely, and you can see the red as well, or what was there. So a lot of the paint came off under the pressure washing, which like I say is fine. What I'm going to do is do something that I've been waiting to do for ages, which is to tart the engine up. So I'm going to pull off the alternator, the water pump pulley, all this kind of stuff, so we can get to the front of the engine bit here, with a view to making it red again. And I think it's going to look so good, and I've been desperate to do this for so long. Yeah, everything else in here has come up nicely, got rid of the grease, even the steering rack looks good. As I say, the brakes were binding on a bit, so I need to kind of get it up in the air and spin the wheels and see. I think it's the fronts, so perhaps going to need to do some brake rebuilding work there. Annoyingly, I still haven't worked out what this front clip is off, and believe me, I've tried. So I think I'm going to have to pull apart the brakes and try and find a part number somewhere, because it might be that we need to rebuild the calipers, some new pads and discs perhaps, or indeed buy some new calipers if they're not too expensive, which is often the case with these. So yeah, but I can't tell you how excited I am to get into this thing and start making it look good under here.
She grew up on the farm, but lives in the city.
Okay, so I've removed the bits at the front of the engine now, so we can see what we're dealing with. So it's all beautifully degreased now, but what I'm going to do is get a wire brush to just make sure I remove any more loose paint and then I can give it a good clean down with alcohol, and then I'm going to mask it up and we're going to spray it back to its lovely bright shiny red. So I'm really excited about doing this. So yeah, I'm going to crack on with the wire brush now. Okay, so I know it still looks mucky, but I've given it a good wire brush, got rid of all the loose stuff, sprayed it with air to get out all the dust and rubbish. And like I say, I'm going to wipe it down with alcohol now, and then I'm going to mask everything off, and let's make it look red. Masked up and ready for paint. So yeah, I just want to try and hit the engine block without getting, I hate it when pipes have paint on them and stuff like that. So I don't mind getting the balancer or done and stuff like that, but I really want to avoid getting it on pipes and stuff like that. So let's see if we can get this back to red and shiny. Okay, so here we go. High temperature engine paints, which I've shaken vigorously for 2 minutes. I've also left it in front of my heater to get it a bit warmer. Sorry, caps come off. So what you want to do is do light coats and do several of them. So let's give it this first dusting. Getting all the nooks and crannies. It's quite thin, it goes on quite thin, so like I say, it says to do lots of thin coats. Apparently that is probably why it came off before. It's a temptation to just blast it, especially an impatient person like me. It's very strong. What have we got here then? So yeah, boy, she pops. So I've had to leave that to dry for an hour, so it's been drying quite well. I think I did 3 coats in the end, but yeah, I think you'll agree it really pops. And what I have to do is run the engine up to temperature to cure that, which I'll do obviously at a later date when everything's back together again. But yeah, hopefully you'll agree that really helps in sprucing things up. And continuing on that theme, what I started to do is finally paint the engine bay as well. So yeah, it still looks very shiny, but I think that's really going to bring up the appearance of how it looks under here with all the new components, with the new wheel tubs, with everything in there. And when I've done all this side, I think under here is really going to start to look like something special. So I'm going to continue on beavering away painting, and I'll show you what it looks like at the end. Look at that. I really think that the engine now really pops against the black of the engine bay. And when this dries, I think it will really, like I say, I wanted it to be that thing when you open up a hood and underneath it, there's this super impressive V8 staring at you, shining bright against the black. So yeah, I think that's come together really nicely. And what I've been really keen to do, like I say, is to just keep the patina of the truck intact. So just paint it up to the line of the wings there, and that obviously is going to protect all this stuff as well, so it's all helpful stuff. So I'm just kind of going to wait a while for it to dry. I do the thing like you shouldn't do of painting the thing nearest to me first and then lean over it and get myself absolutely coated in paint. So I'm going to leave it to dry for a little while, and then there's the crowning glory. I'm sure the elephant in the room, I suppose, really is the rocker covers, so we've got something for that as well. I'll just leave it to dry for a bit and then we'll pop them on. Right, it's still not quite dry, so I'm gonna have to be careful here, but I just wanna crown the engine. So as I said, the rocker covers are grim. What we've got here is some nice shiny ones. So I managed to pick these up on Facebook Marketplace for like 30 quids. We've given them a clean. Dan and I, they had overspray on them, so we had to clean them up. I've given them an auto sol polish. Obviously it says 350, which is perfect for the engine. And I've got some new gaskets as well and new bolts. So I want to throw this on. I think that's just gonna really elevate the whole thing. So let's do that. All right, that's that one on. Let's throw the other one on and then admire our handiwork. So a couple of watershed moments this week. Firstly, the thing moves. It goes backwards and forwards. The transmission, I'm relieved to say, was working, or at least it is in first and reverse. And I look forward to hopefully in the not too distant future seeing if it changes through all the gears out on the road. And secondly, getting it pretty much finished off under the hood here, barring a couple of odds and sods. Now, if you look at that before video to what it looks like now, it's a complete transformation. And I think if you were to take this to show and pop the bonnet, I think people would be keen to see what's lurking under there. And I think it really does look great. And I'm happy to say it's starting to run well as well. I still need to tune it up, I still need to time it and stuff like that. But once it's up and running, despite the cold, it's running well, which is fantastic. I have done other stuff this week. I've been doing quite a bit of wiring and boring, stuff like that. And what I've decided to do is bank that footage and put it into something more concise. Otherwise, it's just going to be me slaving over wiring diagrams and sobbing to myself, which I'm sure some of you would want to see, but perhaps not all. So next week, I'm going to put out a Ford Falcon omnibus. So I'm going to put together all of the Ford Falcon footage and do it into one mega video, which is a good thing to do for YouTube, and also add extra content, which is around how much I made on that project when I sold it. So if that's of interest to you, do check that out. And what that will do is just give me a bit of time to catch up in a way. And at the moment, I'm basically running real time, which puts a lot of pressure on. And I want to just give myself a bit of headroom to make sure the content that I'm putting out is good and not just really boring, slow stuff. So do still check that out next week. And like I say, if you're new to the channel, it's a good opportunity to catch up on the Ford Falcon. Thank you very much for your support. And yeah, I'll see you in a couple of weeks or next week for the omnibus. Have a good one and see you soon.